Or we are live. Great. So, thank you all of you for joining us today in this session. We have Surabhi Vashisht. She's the founding general partner of Paradigm Shift Capital. And to tell about Surabhi, she's the youngest woman general partner in India, and the next generation of VCs just getting started. So she was previously the HR director of WeWork India. She joined right at the launch stage, hired HR, hired leadership teams, and took the organization to over 500 employees and 35 assets across India. And in the past, all things, she was handling everything people and talent acquisition at Headout. She joined the team as a 10th member and took it to over 100. So she's hired for roles across digital marketing, design operations, technology, as well as head of HR from New York. She built a structure around talent acquisition, onboarding, training, feedback, and exit from the ground up. She also worked at Target India and Make a Difference. So she always claims that disciplining chaos is her strength. It generally keeps her on her toes and remains a constant source of motivation. And she's also a petitioner of having women and stay and thrive in the workspace. And when not working, she loves to read, rhyme, swim, and travel. It's a pleasure hosting you, Surabhi. Welcome to SaaS Insiders Annual 2021. So the stage is yours now.
Thanks so much, Gautam, and thank you for that introduction. Very glad to be here today. I hope all the viewers that have joined us here today are keeping safe. I hope all of your families and your loved ones are safe as well. And very excited to be here and be chatting with the community of SaaS Insider about as a venture capitalist, especially a new age venture capitalist. What is it that a fund like ours, that's Paradigm Shift Capital, what is it that fund like ours looks for in entrepreneurs, especially outside of the obvious product, market, etc. Right? So what I'll do is I'll first talk a little bit about the fund to give you a little bit of an understanding about who we are, how are we so very differentiated, and then touch upon what is it that we look for in founders. So here at Paradigm Shift Capital, we're actually India's first truly global VC. We're 3 general partners. One of my partners is based in the Bay Area, and the other 2 of us are based here in Bangalore. So we're obviously a geographically diverse team. But what also makes us really diverse is the kind of background and thought process that we come from. Between the 3 of us, we have been entrepreneurs, we've been operators ourselves in the startup ecosystem, especially. In each of our career in the past decade, we've been very closely intertwined within the startup ecosystem, especially super early stage startups going from that 0 to 1 stage, and of course, technology startups at this, right? And between the 3 of us, we've, for example, I have hired core team, I've hired leadership teams, and helped founders set their initial company culture. My other partner, who's based in the Bay Area, Dhruv, he's been a 2-time entrepreneur himself. He's run a lifestyle business in India, and he's run a VR edtech company in the Bay Area. And my third partner, Govind, he was most recently the CFO at WeWork India. And prior to that, he was working at InMobi very closely along with Naveen Tiwari. So if you'll understand a little bit from our background, we've been very closely operators, entrepreneurs in the startup ecosystem, and we've come together to create this fund and back entrepreneurs in that seed and pre-seed stage across India and US. And not just help them with capital, because of course, capital is a commodity. We're looking at entrepreneurs who are going after smart capital. And we're looking at providing that leverage and that skill, guidance, competence that we have, and provide that to entrepreneurs who do need that, especially at that stage, right? Like having been on the journey ourselves, we know what it takes to build a startup and take it from that 0 to 1 journey. So we want to help the entrepreneurs that we back succeed in that. So in terms of our thesis, in India, we're looking at products and entrepreneurs who are building products that are being built for global markets. So basically a product that obviously can be used by the Indian consumer, because that's obviously like our home base, but of course like the global market as well. And that potential is very much present in our founders located here in India today. And this opportunity currently of the virtual and remote work and the remote world has actually obviously brought about a lot of things that we wish we weren't in currently, but it's also brought about a really massive change in how work is done. And it's going to obviously reshape how work is going to be done in the future as well. And one big advantage we see there is that now there's literally no boundaries anymore, right? These boundaries that we've all created around land and around countries just don't exist anymore, and literally anyone could build a product from anywhere. And we're here to propel those, Indian founders who are looking at going after global markets, because we know that potential is present. It's just the time for them to shine and thrive. And we're obviously sector agnostic, but we have a very deep focus, especially on SaaS, because SaaS, of course, coming out of India, is that product, is that industry that can very much be scaled globally. So that's our focus in terms of like India. In the Bay Area, though, we're very deeply focused on future tech, deep tech opportunities in the space of AI, AR, crypto, blockchain. So we're really looking at how do we, as a fund, have a really diverse and very cutting edge and future-ready portfolio of startups, of entrepreneurs, and how do we propel those entrepreneurs forward. That's a little bit about us. And, to any founder listening to this, in case you want to get in touch with us, you just have to go to our website, paradigmshift.vc, and you can read up more about us, and you can go ahead, fill out the pitch us form, or find a way to contact us through there. And, we'll be happy to get back to you after we've read a little bit more about what is it that you're building. So without further ado, I'll talk a little bit more now about what do we as a fund look for in the founders that we back. Well, first and foremost, we obviously know that product is really important. But what's even more important is who is building that product. What is that founder looking for? What is that founder aiming to do? And a lot of times founders have that sort of a really strong calling based on some sort of an event that they've had, right? It might be a problem that they've encountered. It might be, them finding their first backer, which gave them the confidence to go really build this product out. So we really look for founders who are very mission driven, have the passion to take the product and really make it hugely scalable, and at the same time understand the value behind that. And very important to see that has this founder in their past, even if they're first time founders, even if they are second time, whatever be it, right? Have they in the past done work which shows that they've actually shown a lot of grit and a lot of hustle? Because, of course, being a founder is really hard work. There's obviously the glamorous side of it, but there is a far more like demanding side of it, which takes a toll, obviously, on your mental health, on your emotional health, and of course, then your physical health as well. So you really need to come with that very clear focus and motivation. And there'll always be days when people obviously don't feel at the top of their game every single day. But it's just being okay with the fact that that is what a founder's journey is like. So of course, like the product is very important, but it's also really important for the founder to have that sort of mental strength and grit, that makes sure that they go through this journey of starting up day in, day out, and at the same time go on to motivate a huge team of people who join them on their mission, their vision, and their dream, right? So, but obviously, founder is like the first, sort of like most important criteria in our mind. Like, does this founder have all of these? And it's obviously not a scientific playbook, right? It obviously needs to be a really good blend, and it's more what should I call it? It's more of an emotional strength and obviously a test of intelligence as well in terms of what they're about to get on. But once a founder has their product in place, they know what market they're going after, and let's say they've secured that funding as well. The next very important thing that they need to move on to is that team and culture building. And having come from that industry myself and having done that alongside a couple of founders and CEOs and done that for startups from almost like when we were 10 employees, so basically from scratch, I see how very important that is in really propelling the idea forward. And we look for founders who have that awareness. It's not necessary that they already know the playbook or already know, have the know-how of how to go about this journey. But what we really need to see is that strong willingness to learn, and that very strong willingness to go out there and build a world-class team. But what does world-class team even mean? Let's say a certain employee who was really fantastic at another startup, you think that they're going to be great at your startup as well, so you hire them. But at the same time, it's very important to realize that the kind of culture that you are building at your startup might be very different to the kind of culture they are coming from. So, are these two cultures just right for this employee to also thrive in this sort of a culture? So, while technical interviews are obviously of utmost importance to really understand whether this person has the expertise and the know-how to do their job day in day out, it's really important to understand that do they align with the culture and the values of what this founder is going to begin with and set up in their startup. And that's why it's almost like a day zero task, right? For a founder to understand and establish what are those cultural values that they really want to have within their organization. And it's a less spoken about fact, but like culture is not really an HR job, you know. Culture is like far more driven top down. It's a lot more about the founder and the founding team that then trickles down into the organization. So you might have heard about this, that culture is, or it's something I actually like to propagate very heavily, that culture is not the words you speak and the things you say, but it's totally the actions that you do and the decisions that you make. And just for a founder to have that understanding and realize that this is what is going to trickle down into their organization. And there's obviously lots of books written on this topic. So any founder aspiring to get onto that journey can find that and read more about it. But very crucial in our, assessment as well, that we look at founders who do have that level of emotional intelligence and more importantly, that openness to learn. You don't need to come with all the answers, but you need to have that mindset of wanting to learn and really craving to learn. So I've covered two aspects so far. What I've covered is so far is that we look at the founder and what their vision, what their mission, where their passion lies. The second is, of course, in terms of team and culture. Does this founder have that know-how and the willingness to learn? And the third one that I'm going to talk about is, a little bit differentiated in the sense that I'm going to talk about the market or the TAM that a founder is going after. Of course, when it comes to, starting up, it's a pretty one of those top things that you as a founder think about, right? Like you think about your product market fit. So you obviously think about what market you're going after. But very important to keep in mind that not every startup needs to go down that VC route of investing. A lot of startups might actually do better by just being bootstrapped and by becoming profitable as soon as possible. And if we have founders approaching us who have that sort of an idea, which we know that probably the way the founder, it probably could be the idea, or it could probably be the way the founder wants to build it. Maybe it's not meant for that venture capital sort of route of investing. Maybe this person could instead look at bootstrapping and running this business, and obviously that means it will be a far more slower pace as compared to a VC funded startup. But it also means that this founder does a lot more about what's right for the business versus just saying that the right thing for the business is for me to go raise a ton of funding, right? Because obviously once you raise funding, a lot of things come along with it. There is a pressure from the investors that comes through, and the only reason for that is that those VCs as well need to provide a return to their limited partners, which are their investors. So that's sort of like how VC works. And I think if more founders understood that, they would realize that being part of like a venture capital fund and being funded from them does really mean that their goals and their milestones will shift a lot more rapidly and will need to scale up a lot more rapidly. So they really need to understand beforehand what sort of a pace do I as a founder want to set for my business and what is my target that I'm going after. And am I comfortable to be going after really rapid goals? And there might be businesses that fit into that perfectly. So then it's just using that leverage of being able to raise venture capital funding to make your business reach greater heights sooner. But that's just something that did want to touch upon. And whenever we have founders come to us with ideas that we think would be better bootstrap, we do plant this thought in their mind and let them, of course, take the final decision. But yeah, those are those are three things that I just wanted to talk about. What do we as a fund look for? And that's primarily what I wanted to share. Didn't want to share a lot of information. Just thought I'll keep it a bit light and shed some light on importance of the founder, the team, and culture, as well as TAM and is VC funding route the right route for this startup or not. So Gautam, at this point of time, I'd love to see if there's any questions that the audience has. Can probably take about 2 to 3 questions to make sure that we're well in time, and yeah, take it from there.
All right. So we have a question from Sanchita. So the question is, what are some of the red flags that you would like to share? Red flags you see with
Sure.
founders? Yeah.
Sure. So in terms of red flags that we don't actively look out for red flags, but if there's something that comes our way, right, like it becomes the more like founder interactions that you have, you realize, and I won't call this necessarily founder interactions. I think coming from the industry that I am, that's been heavily in the people space, you're able to identify some traits, or you're able to identify what this person is trying to say and what they really mean. And I think the most important thing there to keep in mind is that, is this person showing integrity in what they're trying to do? Is there really like a pure like vision and mission that, is close to heart for this founder? And that's why it's so very important to understand like where did this idea come to this founder from? What were they thinking when they thought about building a product around, let's say, a problem that they identified? And really just understanding that over a period of time, you can really get a bit more personal with the founder and speak with them on a more emotional level rather than a VC checklist of these are the technical factors that need to be in place. And it really just happens by having more conversations. There's no absolute like playbook to that. I think that's just true for all things startups and VC. Like there's no playbook to how this can be done right, apart from obviously very few basics. But yeah, I think in terms of red flags, nothing in specific that I will call out, apart from the fact that are they being honest? Can they show that they have integrity? And we like to understand that over our journey of, our conversations with our founders. And especially as, people who've come from that very close startup ecosystem, like each of us having spent our last decade of our career in that startup ecosystem, you just get to realize because you on a day in day out basis, you're working with founders, you're working with people who come in and are happy to work with an unstructured environment. So you do get to see glimpses of what this person means, what they really are trying to say. And yeah, that's primarily what it is. Obviously, one big red flag that I can't not mention is someone founding just because they want to be a founder. Like they like the glamorous part of it. There's really so many more, I would say it's such a challenging and hard journey. Like if your heart is truly not in it, it's no point getting into it just for the pressure because there's obviously lots of paddles assigned to it that come along with fundraising, and it's not it's no easy feat. We have lots of respect for all the founders who are starting out. Especially through the pandemic, we've seen a lot of people have probably lost their jobs, have actually taken on the baton of finally starting up their own startup. And I think that forms like a great avenue, right? Like maybe now I have that chance to like sort of just reset and think about what I really want to do. And yeah, just getting to the crux of where this founder is coming from and why they're building that is very important.
Great. So we have 5 minutes left. So and there are two more questions.
Sure.
One is from Har Pratap Singh. What advice do you have for SaaS startups that have non-tech founders only?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm so glad Harpratap brought that up. So very important for any non-tech founder to realize that before going down the path of making their product come to life and going after fundraising, it's just so very important to find that tech co-founder. And this can't be done in any sort of like band-aid solution way. You can't have a temporary solution to finding a tech person onto your startup. You have to figure out a way to figure out who that technical co-founder or the tech-based tech background co-founder for you will be. Because if you're building a SaaS startup and you're looking at making it, big in that space, it's just an absolutely essential, an absolute essential to find that co-founder before you take any step forward. And I think today there's so many founders in the Indian community, Indian startup community especially, that you'll find so many more examples of other people that have been on similar journeys. So you'll understand from them and a little bit about their journey about how probably hard it was to find their tech co-founder, but how really finding that person helped propel their organization, their idea, like it came to life. And it's just like an absolute crucial to find that person. There's obviously lots of like programs that there are to be able to go ahead and find an like a co-founder, but also like just tapping into your network and really putting your thought out there. And just I can't emphasize enough on the aspect of tapping into your network for problems that you are undergoing and finding solutions to those. And of course leveraging the power of social media. I think you know any founder who wants to thrive in today's day and age really needs to understand these few aspects of how very important it is to maintain and build that really strong network. And then go on to tapping into it. And of course cold emailing is another really huge avenue. So literally never be shy from cold emailing anyone. I've actually found a lot of my jobs directly by cold emailing, and a lot of other like business proposition get fulfilled out of cold emailing as well. So cold emailing is literally a superpower. Keep it crisp, keep it to the point, and keep it sincere, and you will surely evoke a response.
All right, great. So one last question, Surabhi, and 2 more minutes. We can wind up after that. So it's from Madhav Vamsi. How do you assess or say measure certain softer aspects like culture or founders thinking around culture?
Right. So great question. I think it's one of those questions, Madhav, that have no absolute easy answer. But what I can say, having been on that journey myself of working alongside different founders and helping build culture for their companies, for their startups, is really understanding what sort of, like, just think of culture as one thing, right? If I would tell you, think of culture as just literally one thing, think of it as behavior. What sort of behavior do you want yourself to be portraying? What sort of behavior do you want your founding team, your employees to be portraying day in, day out? And start by building behaviors and actions, start by building actions that validate that behavior. For example, if you're trying to say that we need to be, honest, no one's going to say that we want a culture which promotes, a lying culture. You don't want that. Something very simple so everyone can understand this example. If you as a founder are someone who at even the most critical time shows honesty, that is the kind of behavior that people will respect you for and people will then replicate. Like as a founder and a founding team, you're almost role models for the employees that then come on to join your organization. So just keeping that in mind is a good way to go by what do I start building this culture as? And once you have that established, right, it could be three things on top of your mind. It could be one thing, it could be five things, it could be seven, that's fine. But just keep those in mind as you interview every single employee to join your startup. And as you keep that in mind, try to frame questions around those that you can probably ask them to cite examples of when they, showcase such a behavior. And just keep that in mind at all times and realize that it's not something to treat lightly. And the more you embody those behaviors and values day in day out, the more your employees will. And that's how you need to go about your hiring process as well. It's one of those things that people don't like to deal with and probably like to deal with once it's gotten too ugly. Cultural misalignment between employees. It's a topic I actually can speak about far more in depth and talk a lot more about. So anyone who wants to understand more about this, you can go onto our website and find a way to contact us, and we can chat more through there. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Just imagine it, as I said before, just imagine it to be behaviors, unseen behaviors, especially. It's something that you do even when no one's watching. That's what company culture is.
All right, great.
Awesome.
Yes, so we are right on time. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's session. And thank you again, Surabhi. It was an amazing session. Yeah, I'm sure all of them had takeaways. And yes, so for the audience, we have a keynote session coming up. Do stay for that and go check out the expo. We have quite a few vendors lined up. And thank you again for joining us today. Take care and stay safe.
Very glad to have spoken today. Thanks, Gautam. And just wanted to say in conclusion that, the VC industry, or rather the startup industry, is constantly disrupting and, creating newer tech. And we as a team are just looking at, becoming that new fund that is sort of like the next gen of VC. And we're looking at disrupting how VC is done. So that's what we're here to do. And so very excited to partner with our founders on this super ambitious feat.
All the best, Surabhi.
Thanks, Gautam.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.